$42,000 doesn't buy you a special RAV4, it buys you the ordinary one with the excuses removed. This XLE Premium gets the 5th gen hybrid system, all-wheel drive, a retuned structure, and the new brake and body control hardware Toyota uses to make this thing feel more expensive than it is. At this price, boring is allowed, sloppy is not. In a RAV4 hybrid, 236 horsepower shows up kind of like a good waiter does. You never catch the moment that it does show up, but everything is magically on the table without you ever noticing. Off the line, it's the electric motors that do most of the talking, and the 2.5-liter four-cylinder only shows up when you ask for some serious commitment from the throttle pedal. There's no real launch, there's no drama, and the effort of acceleration never really reaches you as the driver. It gathers speed, then hands it over to you and said, "Here, isn't this the speed you asked for?" That's the thing. Adequate is actually a compliment here because a RAV4 hybrid buyer isn't looking at acceleration like it should be a personality trait. The 2.5-liter 4 is running on the Atkinson-cycle, which is something we've never really discussed before. But think of it this way. It's engineering shorthand for wringing out efficiency out of a combustion process that would rather not be rushed. Left alone, the presence of that four-cylinder engine is basically inaudible. Push it on a long uphill stretch and it settles into a mid-range drone and never climbs to anything you'd call pleasant noise. But it's actually not grating. It's an appliance motor doing appliance motor things, and it checks out the moment you don't need it. With the CVT, there are no stepped gears here, just a planetary gear set, picking an engine speed and committing to it. Cruising along like this, the CVT's entire ambition seems to be that it would prefer to be forgotten. It actually manages to do that because, for the most part, it's just simply there in the background doing CVT things. Speaking of which, you bury the throttle, revs jump out ahead, the gears do what they do, and everything waits until road speed catches up and everything settles back to normal. In sport mode, there are imaginary steps and you can actually shift manually. It's very interesting, except that the shift protocol has shift actuation going in the wrong direction. If we want to shift up, well, we're pushing forward, and if we want to shift down, we're pulling backward. The gears do nothing to change the physics, and most owners will never provoke this whole situation. The ones who do actually knew what they were buying in the first place. This one's all-wheel drive because I think this is the only way they come in Canada. And to make this all-wheel drive, there's actually an electric motor at the rear axle. It makes 89 pounds of torque. One highlight is that there's nothing mechanical connecting that electric motor to the rest of the powertrain. There's no prop shaft, no transfer case burning through your precious fuel on your daily commute. And keep in mind, it's exactly the same setup as in the Woodland that we drove recently, which is dressed in a slightly different costume than this XLE. Strip back that costume and it's exactly the same bits underneath, which is traction insurance, and that happens before a low grip moment turns into a real situation. You never notice it, which is the whole point, because the best safety net is the one you forget that's there. Let's not forget, the RAV4 is the best-selling or one of the best-selling crossovers in this part of the world, and I've heard the cynics say that Toyota's job here was not to build a better one, it was to avoid screwing up the one that prints a lot of money. Subscribers get notified when the next episode goes live. Everybody else leaves it to the algorithm. If you'd like to see when our next episode drops on YouTube, well, that's what the subscribe button does. Steering is quick enough, it's definitely precise, it's electrically assisted, and it kind of treats feel and feedback like it's someone else's department. And that's kind of the crux of it. Accuracy is what you trade off for a little less feedback. Point it and it goes exactly where you want it to go. There's no laziness, there's no delay in responsiveness. It just does what a good steering system does. Nobody mistakes this steering for talkative like a GR86 or a GR Supra, but For the buyer of the RAV4, that's right on point. One thing we haven't gone into depth with this all-new RAV4 is the braking system, and it is a little bit of a departure from Toyota's conventional braking setup because it is electronically controlled. And by that, I mean it's brake-by-wire. So when you step on the brake pedal like we're doing now, there's no physical connection between you stepping on that brake pedal and the pads clamping on the rotors. There still is a master cylinder, of course, but it's connected to a computer, and that meters pressure based on what the driver's asking for. Systems like this can be a recipe for disaster, especially in context of this being a hybrid, but what we have here is one of the best brake pedals in the segment. It's firm enough, it's precise enough that I have very fine control over the attitude of the RAV4 just through the brake pedal. It's firm, it's consistent, and modulation and control are perfect. Plus, with hybrids, you can often get that funky handoff between friction braking and regenerative braking, and that's not present here either. Plus, in emergency situations like I experience almost daily in Toronto, you've got all the confidence in this brake pedal to slow this properly, be able to stop it quickly, and to steer around vehicles that have likely broken various traffic laws that have magically appeared in your direction of travel. Whether you enjoy driving through corners or not, the moment you turn in, there are two systems that wake up from their slumber. Vehicle braking posture control is a more honest name than Mazda's kinematic posture control, but it kinda does the same thing. It just nips at the inside rear brake to maintain a flatter cornering attitude. Then there's a mouthful of a system, cooperative steering driving force control, and it actually coordinates pitch and roll so that the nose settles where a softly suspended car might flop around. A lawyer clearly named both of them, and you'll never notice either of them, but their effects are real. Anytime I point this through a corner, this is incredibly poised, and it corners flatter than I ever expected a RAV4 could. That's the thing, you'll never feel these systems because they're unobtrusive in the true sense of the word. I like to think that RAV4 owners will have more confidence in their crossovers simply because it corners so well. We can talk about all the changes to the suspension, but where it really starts is with this chassis because Toyota's made it stiffer than before. Toyota stuck a high damping adhesive into the floor pan to smother the drumming that makes cheap cars sound cheap. On these 18s, not the all-terrains of the Woodland and not the margin-chasing 20s of the upper trims, ride quality here is excellent. I've thrown the roughest of roads at this RAV4, and it soaks up all of the bumps, the torn up pavement, the expansion joints, the unexpected potholes. This thing has an incredible ride. And that doesn't mean this thing has lousy body control because it's not soft, it's not floaty, it's just composed. And it just comes off as something engineered by people who really understood who their customer is. The funny thing is, I've been enjoying this in the corners, which is not something I expected of a mid-grade RAV4. And it stays composed at 8/10 when it's built for a buyer who reaches their personal limit at the roundabout on the way into Costco. If you'd like to support the channel beyond just watching, the link to the merch store is here, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this and a little less time worrying about industry access. No pressure, just an option. The seating position is exactly what a RAV4 buyer is looking for. It's upright, you've got excellent visibility, a great sense of where all four corners are. The seat's comfortable, it's relatively supportive even on long distance drives. It is powered, but the one thing it won't do is remember your favorite seating position. There is no memory feature at this trim level, so the next time somebody drives your RAV4, changes the seating position, you'll find yourself rebuilding your seating position like you're jumping into a rental car for the first time. And power adjustments are driver's side only. Your passenger has to do it all manually. Small omissions omissions, yes, but at $42,000, small omissions are putting their elbows on the table. This XLE wears the 10.5-inch screen atop the dash, not the 12.9-inch screen like the upper trims. This is running Toyota's new Arene system, and I have plenty of thoughts about it, but what I will say is the most important controls are still physical. There is a volume knob, and temperature adjustments for yourself and your passenger are still physical buttons. For a lot of owners, they consider this trim level a win simply because of this shifter. The plug-ins and the Limited get the toggle switch, which has yet to capture the hearts and minds of RAV4 owners. This has SofTex upholstery, which is kind of like synthetic leather, but it's not trying to be synthetic leather. This is an excellent upholstery, and not only does it look great, but it also appears to be very durable and is very comfortable if you're sitting on the stuff. And my guess is as long as you keep it clean, it's going to look as good in year 8 as it does here in year 1. The interior materials are an exercise in restraint because a lot of the places make a lot of sense. Like where your elbows land, they're padded. Where your elbows don't, it isn't. There's no piano black or shiny surfaces that become a shrine to your fingerprints. There's nothing here that's trying to seduce you, which is correct because this is a family crossover after all, not a 5-star hotel lobby with cup holders. Cargo room is just as generous as every other RAV4, and there's an actual spare tire under the floor. Yes, it's a donut, but it's an actual wheel and tire, not a can of Fix-A-Flat accompanied by a prayer. It'll tow 3,500 pounds, but this trim does omit the 120-volt outlet in the back that you find in the Woodland or the plug-ins. So if you're camping, you won't be running a cooler or any power equipment at the back of your RAV4 XLE. One thing I did find odd is that there is just one wireless charger when there are spaces for 2 phones here. You do get 2 wireless chargers on the Limited trim. There are a total of 5 USB-C ports for cables around the cabin, and overall, the practicality here isn't clever, but it's so complete and so thorough that you never even question it. Heated seats, yes, but ventilated seats live one trim level up, and you'll rediscover that decision every August. For the RAV4, Toyota's trim ladder is constructed so that you find the exact rung to say, that's enough car. Most people say it right here at the XLE, which is why Toyota builds the most of these. If this review gave you something you didn't get from a brochure, a website, or a press release, well, hit the like button. It tells YouTube to share this episode with other people like you. Interested in an episode like this takes just a second. That's my take after a week behind the wheel. Owners have had a few months for some issues to surface. It's a small early adopter pool, so weigh any single complaint here accordingly. The loudest one, and it bites this trim specifically, is that the interior was built to a price point. Owners trading up from older RAV4s notice the hard plastics faster than first-timers do, and gripes cluster right where the price crosses $40,000. It's rarely one big miss, more an overhead sunglasses bin that pops open over a bump or a door that shuts with a hollow thunk. A few early cars rattle too, though it's a small and self-selected crowd doing the posting. Here's one thing that most mainstream coverage misses is that the trims with the smaller wheel diameter ride better. This RAV4 everyone scrolls past to reach Limited is, by owner consensus, the one that rides best, and it's on the wheels this XLE Premium already wears. The horror story, if you can call it that, isn't the hybrid. That's where owners complain the least, and mostly they're happy with how it drives and how far a tank goes. It's a safety system controller failing early, replacement on national back order for weeks, rare, but it marks where the risks sit for a first-year car, and it isn't the powertrain everyone is irrationally concerned about. Owners, in my opinion, land close with one split. I'll call the cabin finished to a sensible price. They'll tell you that $42,000 starts to feel like a stopping point. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time behind the wheel of one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because real-world owner experiences are much more valuable than anything I can learn in a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. At the beginning of this episode, we set a bar. At $42,000, boring passes, but sloppy doesn't. This XLE Premium clears it and not by a hair. The steering says nothing but goes exactly where it's aimed, and the brake pedal is infinitely better than you'd expect. The body control electronics fake a costlier suspension well enough that you quit interrogating them. Every excuse an ordinary crossover gives you, this one quietly deletes. At this price, the whole assignment is doing the ordinary things and not dropping a single one, and Toyota hit that target dead center. So who is this for? Well, definitely not the woodland buyer who has a real dirt road. It's not for the plug-in buyer who charges every night at home. It's for the person who doesn't need the tires nor the plug, and Toyota spent a tremendous amount of time making sure that this one is right. Now, this would not be my choice, but that's also irrelevant and probably healthy. This is for the people who ask me what crossover they should buy, which has the least amount of nonsense and the least amount of friction, and this one is right at the top of that list. The caveat, though, is price, and at $42,000, the lack of a memory seat as well as ventilation stops looking like Toyota's being stingy and starts looking like these are overdue. That's the thing, nobody blinks at spending $42,000 on a pickup truck, but you spend $42,000 on a crossover and suddenly you have to defend your decision at the dinner table. This one's for the people who made peace with wanting the sensible thing and wanting the sensible thing to be excellent. And that, my friends, is most of the market. And Toyota figured that out before anybody else started looking. That's the RAV4 XLE Hybrid. Subscribe if you want to see more episodes like this. Don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree. And if you'd like to help fund more of these, well, the link to the merch store is here. See you on the next one.